For most of my life, everyone thought I was a happy imbecile. But inside my head was a complex intelligence just like yours.
I am what Mark is really thinking.
An innovative form of communication introduced to me late in life finally allowed me to reach the outside world and tell my story.
Hello viewers. My life since making a movie about the real man inside me has not been as easy as I hoped. It is hard to be someone with a developmental disability in our culture. So I soldier on bringing my voice, my true voice, to whomever will hear it. Welcome to The Uttering Mind with inspirational speaker Mark Utter. Today I am so delighted to have Max Barrows here today and would love for him to tell us what you do with Green Mountain Self-Advocates.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me on this show, The Utterly Mind. I'm Max Barrows, and I am Outreach Director of Green Mountain Self-Advocates. And so what Green Mountain Self-Advocates is it's a disability rights organization. And there are 23 local groups throughout the state of Vermont. There are 600 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities involved in all of those groups. And some of the work we do, I visit those groups a few times a year, just giving them support in running their own meetings. I also, just do a lot of advocacy throughout the state. When the legislature's in session, I encourage people in our organization to speak up at the State House and get connected with their state and local representatives who represent them in the legislature. Also, I do a lot of work on the national level representing Green Mountain Self-Advocates and just bringing the voices of people with all kinds of disabilities to the table whenever changes are made in policy and law.
Oh. It is. Oh, it is a joy to have you here, Max, and I wonder if you might share what messages GMSA is trying to get out into the world.
Well, thank you very much. It's a joy to be, on this show with you, Mark. That's a very good question. Messages that we try to get out in the world. Green Mountain Self-Advocates believes, first, nothing about us without us. And what we mean by that is, whenever, decisions are made about the lives of people with disabilities through policy and law and just overall, we believe that people with disabilities need to be at the table 100% at all times. I mean, and I know, who knows us better than we know ourselves? We are the experts in how, what we need in our lives to live successfully. So that's definitely a message that we, get out there to the world. I would say the second one is more of a discovery of the work that we do. But, I would say that I've discovered the power of peers connecting with each other. I refer to it as the peer-to-peer connection. And what that means through observation of my work is, people with disabilities would not, have the strength to speak up for themselves with, without connecting with other peers. People discover when they join self-advocacy, they realize that they are not alone. And when they meet somebody who has had the same, if not similar, challenges as them, they, really discover, strengths that they may have or may have had that they may not have been aware of in terms of, having the confidence to speak up for themselves and also really feeling good about themselves, just from another peer's perspective of, what life is like, and just, relying on other peers for advice to really get the job done, to kind of stand up for ourselves, as people with disabilities, as self-advocates. We're family, and, it's just important for people to know that, that's what self-advocacy, does. That's why we operate the way we do, with peers coming together. It just makes our movement stronger. And sometimes the advice that, people, self-advocates look for from other, sources is, it's not bad, but sometimes they feel like the information could be, sugar-coated, a little biased. And when it comes from another peer that they connect with, it's the truth. It's, honestly, just our direct voice, from our experience, living our lives. And so that's what I've discovered with the, power of, the peer-to-peer connection. Mark, overall, to our viewers, I would say just, we just believe in true inclusion. Really what we're just saying and what we're asking for to the world is just to recognize our strengths, because we have so much to offer. We give so much to each other and to the world. And so we're just asking for people just to give us a chance to see that, because they will definitely recognize that we can contribute so much to society and just do so many wonderful things. And when people see that, it really breaks down all the, barriers of, just people looking at us like we're just, a condition, and, just people recognizing just who we are, and just, when we work together, in our society, in our communities, it makes our communities stronger. And it really kind of helps the world go round and round when we, we definitely contribute and add to the diversity that really makes this world a beautiful place to live.
Oh. What? Oh, what important messages! Nothing about us without us, and the power and knowledge we gain from our peer connections with others who are different. I want to share a quote I really like. I know there is strength in the differences between us. I know there is comfort where we overlap. Ani DeFranco.
Beautiful.
Okay. Let's get into. Okay, let's get into our topic about terminology. You and I both have autism, but the words people use divide us from each other.
and that's a very good point, Mark. And that is, still a issue in our world. Yes, both you and I are people on the autism spectrum, and we experience it, differently. But it doesn't mean one is better than the other or worse. We have, we may be different, but we both have our strengths and weaknesses. And the way I see it, the terminology, sometimes can put out the messages that say that one person is better than another. And one term that really hits home to me is when people describe, autism as high functioning or low functioning. And those words hurt me personally because, I don't see myself better or worse than you. I just experience my life differently than you. But everybody is smart in their own way. There's no such thing as an expectation, in my view, of a certain way of, being intelligent. Intelligence just comes with whatever, someone is good at. And so when people use terminology that divides us, it doesn't do the world good, because that is not seeing us for who we are. And that terminology can take the world back into seeing us as just conditions or just a disability, and label that off an assumption that is not accurate, instead of looking beyond our disability and really, seeing our strengths and just our abilities instead of our disabilities. And, I think that autism is just plain autism. If I were to say the terminology, here's how I would put it. I may be low functioning at cleaning my room, but I'm high functioning at addressing the issues around terminology that divides us and speaking up about the right words and the right terms to use. So, the terms high and low functioning does not do anybody any good. And it really does divide, people with autism. And not just that, but even people with disabilities in general. Because we all have our ways of, being smart. Everybody has their own way of being smart. I mean, Mark, I see you as just a brilliant person. And just because you have a different way of communicating your words, it doesn't mean that, I can do things better than you. You just experience, autism in a different way. But, your strengths, speak to really who you are, which is what you're doing today. And just your advocacy and just what you contribute is what really matters. So that's how I see it.
Please. share. That. Please share that question you asked me at the standing committee meeting a few months ago.
I can do that. I asked you a question about your thought of another term that has come to mind, and that is the term nonverbal. And I wanted to see if you had any, other thoughts of that term itself.
Oh. I detest that. Word. Oh, I detest that word with great passion, as I have been labeled with it my whole life, and no one knew how many words wanted to flood out of my mind.
Yeah. I think you're a verbal person. I mean, you're speaking your words, right?
Oh. Yes. I am. Oh yes, I am, and so thankful for this form of communication that so assists accessing my mind in spite of my mind-body disconnect.
Well, that's a very accurate way of describing yourself and your experience.
Do. You. Do you have other distasteful words to share?
That's a very good question. I think there are many, of course, what I mentioned before, I'll mention again, high, low functioning is a distasteful label that I personally do not appreciate. Nonverbal is questionable for me. I think on a personal level, I feel that when it applies to autism, it's, we put out the message that, not being able to speak is not the same as not having anything to say. And the label, having the words nonverbal as a label, feels to me that it goes against that. The message that gets put out there of somebody that doesn't have to use their mouth to speak words is they can't say anything or say any words at all, which is not true with the different forms of communicating words that you show everybody, and others that have, communicating challenges where they have to, use a different form of communication to say their words and what is exactly words that come from their minds directly. With the word, when it applies to, autism, feels that as a label, it's like saying that you can't say words. And, of course, with the different forms of communication out there, you don't have to use your mouth to speak your words. As long as they're your words, you're verbal no matter how you communicate them. And so I personally question that term when it is used in definitions of autism that I've seen and how it's used as a label among somebody. So that's my thoughts on, nonverbal, which is why I personally wanted to come to you and ask you about that term used. And if there's any other distasteful words, as you put it directly, of course we still have to educate people about words like the R word, the word retarded. That's still used as a slang word to put someone or something down as a feeling of displeasure from how people may, describe whatever it is they don't like. And we still need to educate people about how hurtful, that word is, as it's used still in our world as a negative, insult. Even though we have made progress of, having a respectful language bill passed in our legislature a few years ago, with our work into that by, getting input from self-advocates throughout the state about, the term changing in state law. We still have to educate people about that word being used as a put down and how hurtful it is, because as said, and I quote, I'll say his name, David Hinsberger, words hit like a fist. And, words hurt. And when we hear words that are used from terminology that is outdated, that describes us as people with disabilities, that labels us as persons with disabilities, it hurts. It hurts to the core. And we still need to, continue with, just making sure people understand that despite our efforts, we still got work to do.
Oh. We. Sure. Do. Always sure do, my good peer and friend and fellow soldier, in celebrating and sharing the joy of diversity. Please give us a personal and national resolution so we can wrap up this show and this year.
I can do that. I would say to everybody to have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'm glad you said soldier, because in self-advocacy, we are soldiers, and we do fight on the front lines, and we do serve our country. You don't necessarily have to be the kind of soldier that, fights in combat, But, self-advocacy is serving your country. And sometimes the issues that we stand up for can feel like, combat in a way. Maybe not the same kind of combat, but, we serve our country and we are soldiers, and we will continue to march on toward true inclusion and, really educating the world that there's more to diversity than what they first think, see, or hear of. And, we will continue to fight for, people with disabilities of all kinds for what they deserve and to belong in every aspect of our society. And so the work that we're doing is, the work of serving our country, and we are soldiers in self-advocacy. So I'm glad you said that word.
Max. It. Has. Max, it has been such a pleasure for me to talk with you today. I wish you all a merry holiday season, and we'll see you in the new year.
And it's been a pleasure talking to you, Mark, and without, meeting so many great self-advocates like you, I would not be the leader that I am today. Learning from you and listening to you really makes me become a better leader. I would not have done my job and do my job successfully without, doing things like this and connecting with you as a peer and other wonderful people as a peer. So on that note, I wish you the same. Very merry holiday season, and definitely we'll see each other in the new year.
Look at me, a jolly man many have assumed was not at home in his head, but I am in here.